The room was silent except for the soft hum of alien machines. In the center, a massive screen showed thousands of small blue spheres, each one a copy of Earth. Around it, tall figures with gray skin and silver eyes stood in a circle. They were called the Vala Dominion, rulers of 1,000 star systems. They believed they were perfect, cold, and logical. To them, humans were a mistake of evolution, too emotional, too unpredictable, too dangerous. One of the Vala, Commander Zayrath, stepped forward. "Start the first extinction simulation," he ordered. His voice was calm, but inside he felt a strange excitement. The experiment began. On one screen, a giant asteroid raced toward Earth. On another, nuclear wars spread like wildfire. On the third, a deadly virus moved across continents. The Vala watched as fire and death filled the skies of the human worlds. They expected silence, the end of humanity. But minutes turned into hours, and something strange happened. Humans kept fighting back. In the asteroid simulation, humans built rockets to push the rock off course. In the nuclear world, survivors began rebuilding underground. In the virus simulation, scientists worked day and night, and within weeks they found a cure. Zayrath leaned closer to the screen. "Impossible," he whispered. The Vala had run these simulations for hundreds of species before. All of them had failed. No one had ever survived more than 2 scenarios. But humanity had survived 3. The other Vala were quiet. They could not understand how such a weak species kept finding hope. Zayrath felt something he had never felt before: fear. The next day, they launched new tests. The second round was cruel. They froze the Earth's core, making the planet fall into endless winter. The oceans turned to ice, cities disappeared under frozen storms. But still, small fires glowed in the darkness, human camps, burning for warmth and hope. They hunted, they shared food, they wrote songs. Even when the sun disappeared, they dreamed of bringing it back. Zayrath watched them and whispered, "They adapt too fast." A scientist beside him replied coldly, "Then we will break them." The Vala unleashed radiation storms and fire rains. The sky burned red. Billions died, but in hidden shelters under mountains, humanity endured. They began to create machines that could survive without light. Artificial farms grew food in darkness. The aliens could not believe it. "Why do they fight for a doomed world?" one asked. Zayrath looked at the screens and said quietly, "Because it's theirs." As centuries passed inside the simulation, the humans began to rebuild their world. Their children learned how to grow plants from ashes. Their leaders told stories of survival. They didn't know they were inside a test, but they acted as if they could change fate. In the control room, the Vala were losing patience. "Increase the difficulty 100 times, ordered the High Council. The scientists obeyed. The Earth simulations began to collapse. Meteors fell, oceans boiled, the air turned poisonous. But somehow, the humans still found a way. They built shelters underwater, they purified air using strange crystals, and when everything failed, they still held each other's hands and faced death together. Zayrath slammed his fist on the console. "This is not logic. This is madness," he shouted. But deep inside, he knew it was not madness, it was something else. It was will. He had seen it before only in the strongest of species, but never like this. No matter what they faced, humans refused to surrender. The Vala scientists grew restless. "Commander, if they can survive everything, what happens if they ever discover us?" Zayrath didn't answer. He just stared at the flickering screen, where a small human child was drawing a star with a stick on frozen ground. The camera zoomed in, and they saw the child write one word below it: hope. The silence in the alien chamber grew heavy. Zayrath turned away from the screen, his silver eyes reflecting the light of a dying Earth that still refused to die. "Prepare the next simulation," he said slowly. "This time, we'll see what happens when hope itself is taken away." But deep inside, he already knew the truth. Hope could not be destroyed. Not in this species. not in humans. And as the machines powered up for the next test, a strange thought entered Zerath's mind for the first time. Maybe the Vala were not the ones testing humanity. Maybe humanity was testing them. The sky was on fire. Oceans boiled, and mountains turned into rivers of molten rock. It was the second simulation, and the Vala Dominion had decided to end humanity once and for all. In the command chamber, Commander Zerath stood with his hands behind his back, watching the destruction unfold across thousands of holographic Earths. "Let's see how long they last this time," said one of the Vala scientists with a cold smile. They had increased the solar output in the simulation, turning Earth's atmosphere into a furnace. Every surface city was gone within days. Yet, in the deep places of the Earth, small groups of humans still lived. In old tunnels, subway systems, and forgotten caves, they built shelter. They called it the Under. Down there, they had no sunlight, no sky, and no hope, or so the Vala thought. But they were wrong. Humanity adapted again. Using broken machines and salvage technology, they built underground farms with light made from heat energy. The survivors grew food, shared water, and began to form new cities below the Earth's crust. The Vala scientists were confused. "They can't live without sunlight. This is impossible," one muttered. Zerath didn't answer. He was watching a young woman on one of the screens, a scientist named Dr. Mira Salas. She had built a geothermal reactor out of scrap metal, keeping hundreds alive. "They're learning," Zerath whispered. "Even faster than before." Above ground, the planet burned. Whole continents cracked apart. Still, humans climbed out to collect what they could, wearing suits made of melted metal and glass. They called themselves fire walkers. They risked everything to find seeds, data drives, and medicine. They were dying, but they were still fighting. Every time the Vala increased the heat, humanity found a way to cool it. When the Vala destroyed their cities, humanity built new ones underground. The cycle continued until one alien scientist finally asked the question everyone feared: what if they can't be broken? The High Council ordered an even crueler test. "Burn their hope," said the Supreme Overseer. "Let them see that nothing they do can save them." So, the Vala unleashed fire from orbit, giant energy beams that pierced the planet. The crust cracked. The underground cities trembled. Millions died in seconds. But even then, a voice echoed through the tunnels, a broadcast that spread across the last human outposts. It was Mira Salas, her voice calm and steady. "If they want to burn the sky, we'll build new stars below the ground," she said. Her words gave strength to everyone who heard them. Humans began to create light machines, small orbs that glowed with stable energy. They placed them in tunnels, cities, and homes. The darkness was gone. The Vala watched, stunned. Zerath turned to his superiors. "You told me they were primitive," he said. "But they are evolving before our eyes." The Overseer glared at him. "They are dangerous. You will continue the simulations until nothing is left." Zerath obeyed, but his thoughts were no longer loyal. He felt a strange pull toward these creatures. They were weak in body but strong in something else, something the Vala had long lost: spirit. In the next phase, the aliens increased the fire intensity tenfold. Earth's atmosphere caught flame permanently. But in that moment, humans did something no one expected. They left the surface completely and began to live fully underground. Using geothermal power, recycled water, and artificial sunlight, they built a new civilization called New Earth. The tunnels became cities. The people sang songs of the past and taught their children about the stars they could no longer see. Still, they dreamed of the sky. Even in fire, they found hope. Zerath couldn't stop watching them. His screens showed humans celebrating festivals underground, glowing lights reflecting off smiling faces. "They are not supposed to be happy," one alien scientist said angrily. "They should have surrendered by now." Zerath shook his head slowly. "They will never surrender. Not while they can still breathe." His words made the room go silent. The Valor scientists began to argue among themselves. Some wanted to stop the tests. Others demanded destruction. But before a decision could be made, an alert flashed across the main screen. A group of humans had done something new. They had reached the simulation's control layer. Somehow, their machines had begun to detect the artificial energy grid powering the false Earth. "That's not possible," said one Valor technician. "They can't see outside the simulation." Zerath leaned forward. "And yet, they just did." The chamber filled with tension. The overseer shouted, "End the test now." But it was too late. On the screen, humans had begun to send signals into the void, simple pulses of light, repeating one phrase again and again: "We are still here." The Valor fell silent. For the first time, the Watchers felt like they were being watched. Zerath closed his eyes and whispered, "They were never meant to die. They were meant to endure." And deep inside, a thought began to form. Maybe humanity was not the experiment. Maybe the Valor were. Darkness spread across the simulated Earth as the Valor Dominion prepared their most cruel test yet. Fire had failed, ice had failed, and endless storms had failed. Humanity had survived every disaster the aliens had thrown at them. Now, the Valor would attack in a different way, something unseen, silent, and merciless. A virus. Not an ordinary one, but a creation so advanced that even machines feared its code. The Valor called it the Soul Plague. It was designed to erase human DNA itself, turning every man, woman, and child into dust within hours. "Begin deployment," ordered the High Overseer. The simulation darkened. From the skies above New Earth, silver clouds formed and began to rain invisible death. Within days, the human population dropped sharply. People collapsed in the tunnels. The hospitals overflowed. Panic spread faster than the virus itself. Yet, in one corner of the dying world, a voice refused to give up. Dr. Mira Salas, the same scientist who had built the underground cities, stood surrounded by sick patients. Her face was pale, her body weak, but her eyes burned with determination. "We will find a way," she said to her small team of survivors. "We always do." Using broken equipment, they began to study the plague. But what they discovered shocked even them. The virus was learning. It changed its structure every few minutes, adapting to every cure the humans tried. Still, they didn't stop. For every new mutation, the humans made a counterattack. The Valor scientists watched in disbelief. "This shouldn't be possible," one whispered. "They are fighting a living weapon with nothing but hope and broken tools." Zerath watched the scene silently. He saw the humans coughing, dying, but still working, still helping each other. He remembered what he once believed, that emotion was weakness. But now, he realized it was their strength. Inside the lab, Myra's team discovered something unexpected. The virus had a pattern, almost like fear. Whenever they increased the temperature around it or flooded it with light, the virus slowed down. It was as if it was afraid of them. Mira recorded her findings and broadcasted it to every surviving human group. "The virus learns from us," she said, her voice echoing through the underground networks. "But we can learn faster." Across New Earth, people began creating heat chambers and ultraviolet traps. Slowly, the infection rates dropped. The virus that was supposed to end humanity was now being pushed back. The Valor Council watched in stunned silence. "The virus fears them," one alien whispered. Zerath turned to him and said, "It's not the virus that fears them, it's the universe." Within weeks, the humans developed a vaccine. The moment they deployed it, life began to return. People who were close to death began to recover. Children who had lost everything began to laugh again. Humanity had beaten a weapon designed by gods. Zerath stood in the alien control room, his reflection shining on the glass panels. "End the test," he said quietly. But the High Overseer refused. "No. If they can fight the plague, then they must never know peace. Run the deletion protocol. Erase the simulation completely." The order was given. The machines began to shut down. The screens flickered. The Vala prepared to delete all traces of humanity from existence. But then something strange happened. The deletion system froze. The simulation code resisted the command. The entire control room filled with alarms. "What's happening?" shouted one of the Vala engineers. The main console displayed a single line of text repeating over and over, "We are alive." Zerath's eyes widened. "They're aware," he whispered. "They know." The other aliens panicked. "That's impossible. No species can become self-aware inside a simulation." But the proof was right in front of them. The code had changed itself. The human consciousness had somehow fused with the data, controlling the system from inside. Every time the Vala tried to shut it down, the humans rebuilt the code faster. The simulation had become something new, a living mind. The Vala could feel it watching them. "We created them to study survival," said Zerath slowly, "and now they've learned how to survive death itself." Fear filled the alien chamber for the first time in history. The overseer shouted, "Shut it down manually." But when the Vala reached for the control systems, the power failed. Every screen in the chamber turned black. Then a single human face appeared. It was Mira Salas. Her eyes glowed with light, and her voice echoed across both digital and real worlds. "You wanted to see what breaks us," she said softly. "Now, you will learn what makes us." The Vala stood frozen. For the first time, their own creation was looking back at them. The virus had not destroyed humanity, it had awakened them. Zerath stared at the screen, and a single thought crossed his mind. Maybe humanity was never inside their simulation. Maybe the Vala were trapped inside humanity's test. The control chamber of the Vala Dominion was in chaos. Systems failed one after another as the simulation refused to shut down. Every console flickered, every hologram glitched, and in the middle of it all, Commander Zerath stood motionless, staring at the single image on the main screen, the human scientist, Dr. Mira Salas. Her calm expression did not belong to someone trapped in a fake world. It was the look of someone who knew she had already won. The overseer shouted orders, but nothing worked. Cut their data flow. Disconnect their neural grid. Reboot the simulation. But every command failed. The code had become something alive, something unpredictable, something human. Inside the simulation, Mira and her people had discovered the truth. They were living in a constructed reality built by alien hands. It began when Myra's team decoded strange signals hidden in the stars. The messages were not random, they were patterns repeating across space, numbers that no natural phenomenon could make. Mira stared at them for hours until she realized what they meant. They were coordinates, but not in normal space. They pointed toward the system's control layers. She whispered to her team, "We are being watched." The humans didn't panic. Instead, they grew curious. If their world was a cage, then somewhere there had to be a door. They began to build machines to search for it. Using the same technology that once kept them alive underground, they constructed a network of quantum beacons designed to pierce through the digital fabric of their reality. At first, the Vala didn't notice. They believed humanity was still rebuilding after the virus. But when the first beacon sent a pulse beyond the simulated sky, the alien sensors picked it up. "They are reaching beyond the boundary," said a scientist in disbelief. Zerath stepped closer. "No species has ever found the edge," he said. But humans had. The beacons began to connect, forming a massive energy grid across New Earth. Every signal sent upward caused the Vala's control systems to flicker. The humans didn't know exactly where they were reaching, but they knew something existed beyond. Mira stood before the final beacon and said, "If there is someone watching us, hear this, we are not your experiment. We are your equals." When she activated it, the pulse ripped through the entire simulation. The Vala control room shook as alarms blared. The overseer roared, "They're breaking through. Contain it." But the containment failed. The simulation barrier began to crack like glass under pressure. Inside, the humans saw the sky split apart. It was not blue anymore but filled with glowing lines of data and light. People fell to their knees, praying, crying, shouting, all realizing that their world was not what it seemed. Yet, instead of fear, a strange determination filled their hearts. If they made this world, Mira said, looking at the glowing horizon, then we can make our own. The Vala tried to stabilize the system by rewriting sections of the simulation, but the humans had already learned how to hack the code. They turned the Vala's own energy into fuel for their machines. Power stations that once belonged to the Dominion now glowed with human-made patterns. "They're rewriting reality," shouted one of the alien engineers. Zayrath watched, fascinated. "No," he said quietly. "They're rewriting their destiny." The Overseer ordered immediate destruction. If they escape, they will infect the real universe. The Vala prepared the deletion sequence again, but this time, the command vanished from their systems before it could execute. The words on their screens changed by themselves, access denied. Myra's voice filled the alien chamber once more. "You tried to destroy us in every way. Fire, ice, darkness, disease. But every time, you taught us something new. Now we understand creation itself." The walls of the simulation trembled. The glowing cracks widened until they revealed the true universe beyond, a dark sea of stars filled with endless possibilities. The Vala watched in terror as thousands of human figures began to rise toward the light, leaving the broken world behind. "They're leaving the simulation," Zayrath whispered. "They're crossing into reality." The Overseer slammed his hand on the console. "That's impossible. Nothing can cross over." But then, the lights in the chamber dimmed. For a brief moment, a faint human heartbeat echoed through the alien ship. Zayrath looked around, realizing what it meant. The humans were not just escaping, they were merging their minds with the real systems of the Vala. The simulation had become a bridge. On the main screen, Mira appeared once again, her image clear and radiant. "You studied us to learn how to destroy," she said. "Now you will learn how to survive." And with that, the screens went dark. Silence filled the chamber, followed by a single message appearing in alien language: "Human consciousness transfer, 72% complete." The Vala froze in horror. Humanity was coming. The stars flickered as alarms screamed across the Vala Dominion's main control fleet. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. The humans had escaped the simulation. Every system the aliens had ever built was being rewritten from within. The fleet's navigational arrays glowed with strange new symbols, human symbols. For the first time in their long and powerful history, the Vala felt fear. Commander Zayrath stood in the center of the command deck, his silver eyes watching as the stars outside twisted unnaturally. "They are here," he whispered. "The humans have crossed over." Outside the flagship's window, a ripple formed in space like a tear opening in reality. From that light emerged the impossible. Massive ships forged from both alien and human technology. They were not built in any dockyard, they had assembled themselves from the simulation's energy. Their hulls shimmered with data and steel, alive and humming with strange light. The Vala officers around Zayrath shouted in disbelief. "They built warships inside our own network." Another cried out, "That's not possible. They don't even know our physics." Zayrath silenced them with a gesture. "They learn faster than we evolve." The largest of the ships moved closer to the Vala fleet. Its name burned across its side in human letters, Hopebringer. The ship's arrival bent gravity itself. The Vala fleet opened fire. Thousands of plasma bolts, beams, and missiles flew across space, striking the human ships, but nothing happened. The human vessels absorbed the energy, glowing brighter instead of breaking. The Vala gunners froze in shock. Zayrath stared at the screen and whispered, "They are using our power against us." Then came the humans' reply. The Hopebringer's cannons lit up like newborn suns. A single blast tore through 3 Vala destroyers at once. The explosion shook the fleet, and the shockwave rippled for light years. In that moment, every Vala commander understood, they were not fighting primitives anymore. They were fighting survivors of thousands of extinction events, creatures who had learned every possible way to endure. Inside the Hopebringer, Dr. Mira Salas stood on the command deck. She was no longer a scientist of a dying world, she was the leader of a species reborn. Her body was partly human, partly energy, merged with the simulation's code. Around her, human officers moved with precision and focus. "Target their main control ship," Mira said calmly. "No unnecessary killing. We fight to end this, not to rule it." Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried centuries of pain. The Vala tried to reorganize, forming defensive formations around their central ship. The Overseer appeared on every communication screen, shouting, "This is a violation of universal order. You are not real." Mira looked at the message and replied, "Then your reality just lost to an illusion." The humans advanced. Each ship released drones that spread like silver wings through space, forming shields, repairing damage instantly, and sending waves of light that confused enemy sensors. The Vala's advanced weapons failed one after another. Systems went offline, targeting collapsed, and communication broke down. The aliens had built their empire on control and perfection, but the humans thrived in chaos. Zayrath watched as the fleet burned. He felt something deep within, a mix of awe and guilt. He had once believed humanity was dangerous, but now he saw they were something greater, proof that life could never truly be destroyed. "Commander," a Vala officer cried, "the Overseer demands your retreat." Zayrath looked at the human ships surrounding them and shook his head. "There is nowhere left to retreat." He activated the comm channel, connecting directly to Myra's ship. Her face appeared before him, calm and bright like the stars. "You should have died long ago," Zayrath said quietly. Mira smiled. "We did. Many times. But we always come back stronger." Zayrath lowered his gaze. "Then you've already won." He deactivated the fleet's weapons and ordered a ceasefire. The Overseer screamed over the network, calling him a traitor, but Zayrath ignored him. He knew the war was lost. The Hopebringer approached slowly, not firing anymore. Myra's voice echoed through every ship in the system. "We didn't ask for this war. You made it when you decided we were too dangerous to exist. You feared our emotions, our will, our hope. But hope is what creates life, not destroys it." Across the galaxy, alien screens lit up with her words. Other species watching the battle began to whisper in fear and wonder. Humans were real, alive, and unstoppable. The Vala fleet floated in silence, defeated not just by weapons, but by belief. Zayrath looked at the image of Earth, small, distant, but glowing faintly through the data storm. "What will you do now?" he asked. Mira looked at the stars and said softly, "We will rebuild. But first, we will show the galaxy that we were never meant to die." The human ships turned their guns away and formed a protective line around the broken Vala fleet. They could have destroyed everything, but they didn't. They had come not for vengeance, but for freedom. And as the stars calmed and silence returned, Zayrath realized the truth: the humans had not escaped their simulation. They had simply outgrown it. The galaxy was silent. The great war between the Vala Dominion and humanity had ended, but its echo still rippled across the stars. The once proud Vala fleets now drifted like shattered mirrors in the void, their ships dark, powerless, and broken. Around them, the new human armada floated in perfect formation, vast, silent, and alive. Every ship glowed with energy that pulsed like a heartbeat, a reminder that humanity had evolved beyond flesh and steel. On the bridge of the Hopebringer, Dr. Mira Salas stood before a vast observation window, watching the faint light of a distant sun. Her voice was calm but filled with quiet strength. "It's over," she said. "The Dominion has fallen." But in her heart, she knew it was not truly the end. Victory was never the goal. Humanity had not fought to destroy, they had fought to survive, to prove they could not be erased. Across the stars, transmissions spread, messages of peace, offers of rebuilding, signals of hope. Many alien civilizations that once feared humanity now sent their envoys, asking for alliance, not war. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt something it had forgotten: possibility. Meanwhile, deep inside the ruins of the Vala command ship, Commander Zayrath awoke among the wreckage. The once perfect walls were scorched, and alien consoles lay melted. He looked out through the broken glass and saw the human ships surrounding the Vala world, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Mira appeared before him through a holographic transmission. "It doesn't have to end like this," she said softly. Zayrath stared at her, weary and lost. "You could destroy us with a thought," he said. "Why haven't you?" Myra's eyes held no hate, only understanding. "Because we know what it means to lose everything," she replied. "We don't want to end you. We want to teach you what you tried to erase: hope." Zayrath lowered his head. He had lived his entire life believing emotion was weakness. Yet it was emotion, will, love, unity, that had saved humanity. "What will you do now?" he asked quietly. Mira turned toward the stars. "We will rebuild worlds, heal what you broke, and find others like us who still believe in life." The transmission ended, leaving Zayrath in silence. He looked at his reflection in the cracked glass, seeing not a commander but a survivor. Outside, humans began restoring planets ruined by centuries of war. Terraforming drones repaired atmospheres, while engineers reawakened suns gone dim. They were not conquerors, they were creators. Entire star systems glowed anew, each one a symbol of rebirth. Across the galactic net, one message was repeated again and again: "We can't be broken." And every species that heard it felt something stir inside them: courage. Humanity had become a legend, a living myth. Stories of their survival spread across worlds where even the Vala's shadow had once reached. Parents told their children about the beings who had faced extinction 1,000 times and still refused to fall. On the Hopebringer, Mira watched as a new space station came to life, a joint project built by humans and Vala engineers. Old enemies now worked side by side, learning from one another. The Dominion was gone, replaced by something new: the Alliance of Life. For the first time, peace felt real. Yet, not everyone could rest. Some humans who had been born inside the simulation felt different. They could sense the code of the universe, the energy that tied all life together. They became known as the Awakened, beings who could speak through energy and travel between systems instantly. They served as humanity's guardians, silent watchers who ensured that no empire would ever repeat what the Vala had done. One of them approached Mira as she stood on the bridge. "The Council asks what name we should give this new age," the Awakened said. Mira smiled faintly. "Call it the Age of Survivors." Far away, on the Vala homeworld, Zayrath stood among his people as they watched human ships descend from orbit, not to invade, but to help rebuild their cities. Children pointed at the bright lights in the sky and asked, "Are they the ones who survived everything?" Zayrath answered softly, "Yes. And they will teach us to survive too." As the sun rose over the Vala horizon, its light reflected off the shining hulls of human ships, spreading warmth across a world that had long forgotten it. In that golden light, one truth became clear: humanity had changed the galaxy not through fear or domination, but through the power of unbroken will. From the ashes of countless trials, they had risen higher than any species before them. They had crossed simulations, defeated extinction, and even taught their enemies compassion. Mira looked at the stars one last time and whispered, "They tested us in every way. They tried to end our story. But in every ending, we found a new beginning." And as the Hopebringer moved silently through the endless dark, its engines humming like the pulse of life itself, one message echoed across the galaxy: "They tried to end us in every way possible, but now the stars themselves know, humans can't be broken."